Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Roberts. Welcome to this evening's edition of Effective, Efficient, Affordable and Accountable to You, the show that takes a good hard look at government and governance here in Winstead and asks a simple question. Are you getting what you deserve? Are you getting what you pay for? Are you happy with the amount which you are paying in the context of what you are getting? It's budget season once again, and the three topics we're going to talk about this evening are budgets, school budgets in particular, the long-running saga of school funding and the MBR, and then the issue of school disclosure generally. Now, as always, I should remind you that the views expressed on this show are those of myself, James Roberts. They do not reflect or purport to represent the views of the Winchester School Board or the Gilbert School Corp, both of which organizations I sit on. Let us start with the school budgets. At this point, there are budgets available for public review on both the Gilbert school side and the Winchester school side. The Gilbert school budget has been presented by the Gilbert superintendent to the Gilbert board and approved by the board. The Winchester school budget has been presented by the Winchester superintendent. The board has walked through it. They have not yet expressed any opinion, nor have they approved it. Both budgets essentially cover the same ground. Both are asking for more money. Both recognize the fact that they have existing contractual salary and benefit increases to pay for. Both are looking to expand faculty. But both are looking to offset those costs, at least partially, through cost savings. Neither the Gilbert budget nor the Winchester budget completely cover cost increases through cost savings. The Gilbert budget seeks an additional $365,000 net. That's net of their suggested cost savings. The Winchester school budget on a standalone basis, ignoring Gilbert, requests an extra $735,000. Although Winchester has graciously agreed to gut the Gilbert request for a combined increase of $660,000 on the school side. That is an increase in your taxes of approximately 3.3%, or approximately 80% of a mill. And this is just on the school side of the equation. This does not cover any increases, any mill rate increases on the town side of the equation to either refill the fund balance or pay for roads, bridges, etc. There will be a meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m. That's tomorrow, Thursday, the 23rd of February, at 7 p.m. at the Gilbert School to discuss the school side of the budget. The superintendent will, I imagine, walk through his suggestions and will open the floor for public comment. I would urge anyone who has a view to attend this meeting. Whether you believe our schools are well-run and well-funded, well-run and underfunded, well-run and overfunded, whether you believe our schools are not well-run and perhaps are not well-funded, or well-run, or whatever, not well-run and not well-funded, whatever your view is, you need to attend this meeting. You need to understand the suggestions that are being made in your name. You need to put your views forward so that your views can be factored into the final product. Again, the Winchester School Board has not yet discussed or voted on this budget. And a part of Thursday's meeting is to ascertain where the public is. What issues do they want us to focus on? What do they want us to do vis-a-vis the proposed budget? As I say, the budgets are available online. The Winchester School budget you can access through the Winchester School website. The Gilbert budget, I'm sure, is available at the Gilbert School. Each has a detailed list of proposals, both areas where spending will be increased and areas where spending will be cut. But let's take a step back. How would the average taxpayer in Winstead, the average voter in Winstead, how would Joe Smith of Winstead think about a school's budget? What would he have in the forefront of his mind as he starts this process? Joe Smith would, I think, in the first analysis say, show me the money. Show me the starting point. Show me what we have spent historically so that I might decide where to increase and where to cut. Now, we do not have an audit for 2010-11. We are unable to show you on an audited basis what was spent in 10-11. We obviously do have a budget for 9/10. It showed that we were not able to account in a very fulsome way for how we had spent our money. These are not particularly good starting points for Joe Smith. In fact, speaking for James Roberts, I am embarrassed to say that I cannot tell you where the school board spent $23.5 million in 9/10. I have an audit. It says we spent $23.5 million, but I cannot tell you where we spent it. I repeat, I'm embarrassed to say that. But for Joe Smith, looking for some historical numbers to begin his analysis, he's SOL, ladies and gentlemen. The second thing Joe Smith says is, show me the love, show me some goodwill, tell me that you've dropped the lawsuit, tell me that you're willing to work with the community. Well, once again, Joe Smith is out of luck. The school board has not dropped the lawsuit. The school board is still suing this community. The school board, far from embracing what this community voted for, what this community expressed in the budget referendum last time around, the school board has not embraced that notion. Which brings us to the third thing that Joe Smith might say. Close a building. You told us last year it was educationally appropriate to close a building. You committed to close a building. We voted to approve your closing a building. So close it. We all know that operating half-empty buildings makes no sense. Joe Smith knows that. We all know that there are real savings to be gained by closing a building. Savings that go far beyond the electricity bill that the Board of Education has claimed for the last year represent the highest possible saving. We know in our own homes we have maintenance costs, repair costs, all sorts of costs in addition to utilities. And most of us don't have a staff in our own homes, unlike the schools who do have staffs. Custodians, secretaries, all manner of school-specific staff. We know that if you were to close Batchelor or Hinsdale, you'd be looking at direct savings of between $300,000 and $500,000. On top of that, if you were able to rationalize overall staffing amongst a smaller number of buildings, you'd be saving substantially more than that. Now, please understand, ladies and gentlemen, I am not talking about increasing class sizes. I am not talking about taking away any of the 31 classroom teachers who represent just half of our certified staff. I'm pointing to the other 30-odd teachers, whether they be guidance counselors or psychologists or social workers or therapists or reading teachers or extra numeracy teachers. There has to be a more efficient way of using these people if we close a building. These savings can go to the bottom line. These savings can invest in our future, in our schools. The fourth thing that Joe Smith says, in addition to voting to allow you to close a building, voting to tell you to close a building, we had another vote. We told you to consolidate your finance staffs. We told you to do that. We had a referendum. It passed overwhelmingly. Why have you not done that? Joe Smith would say, realize savings by consolidating functions. Finance, HR, purchasing, maintenance, capital, snow repair, removal, refuse removal. Between Gilbert, the town, and the schools, we have three completely separate, duplicative, expensive sets of functionaries. It seems like every second person in Winchester works for one of those three organizations. Joe Smith says, get savings by consolidating amongst the three systems, two school systems and the town. We've had a referendum, we told you to do it, now go do it. The fifth thing Joe Smith says, you've presented us with a list of other cost savings. This makes sense to me. These are good things. Early retirements, reductions in paras, reconfiguration of reading programs and technology programs. This makes perfect sense. But ladies and gentlemen, Joe Smith says, you also promised to close a building, and you didn't. So yeah, I'm happy that we have a list of cost savings, but you have to make it happen. You have to follow through. You have to implement it if you want Joe Smith to shell out more cash. And the next thing that Joe Smith says, you have invested all sorts of dollars in additive programs, special programs, programs on top of the regular classroom curriculum. Since 9/10, over the last 3 years, we've had all manner of special programs put in place, all of which cost people, all of which cost money. Joe Smith says, tell me that those programs worked. Show me that those programs worked. Show me that they yielded enough result to justify the expense. Because if they didn't, or if you can't show me that, Joe Smith is going to say, disband those programs. Use those people, use those dollars for something else, something more productive. And finally, Joe Smith is going to say, out of that long list of things I told you to do, he's going to say, if those don't add up to enough dollars to finance what you want to do with the schools, you have to look at headcount, you have to look at hours worked, compensation for those hours worked, benefits that comes with those compensations. That's what you have to look at if you're an average Winsted taxpayer, an average Winsted voter thinking about the budget. Once again, close a building, consolidate services, make sure that the cost savings that you've enumerated actually happen, justify past investments. If all of that's not enough, look to your staffing and compensation levels. If you do all of that, if you establish a track record, if you begin to show that your disclosure is accurate, that your results are improving, your graduation rates are improving, that the school community is indeed functioning as a community within the broader Winchester community, that it is engendering support, that it is something that this community can be proud of, this community will, I believe, support it financially. But that's the long term. That's not today, it's not tomorrow, it's not the day after. And let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, while closing a school building is so obviously and clearly a big part of the answer for this year's budget, we can't close a building every year. There aren't enough buildings. We need fairly quickly to look at what is truly the long-term driver of our budgets, and that is people costs. The number of people, the way they are compensated, the hours that they work, and increasingly the benefit packages that we have awarded them. We cannot be in a situation where we employ people who work not for their salary, but for their benefit packages. We have people on our staff, as I'm sure every other school district does, as I'm sure the town may do as well, who earn more in benefits than they do in salary. This is unsustainable because benefits grow faster. Those of you who are lucky to have health benefits from your employer, those of you who work in private companies in and around Winsted, you know that your employer provides that benefit because he needs you to be healthy. He needs you to come to work every day. He is willing to subsidize the cost of your being healthy. But you know that when you want to use that employer's health plan to include your spouse or your children, things get a lot more expensive. Whereas your employer might subsidize 40, 50% of your healthcare cost, he expects you to subsidize or to pay for 70, 80, 90%, perhaps even 100% of your family's healthcare cost. Your employer doesn't employ your spouse. Your employer doesn't employ your 6-month-old child. Your employer employs you. He was willing to subsidize your benefit package, but you should be prepared to pay for that of your family. And that is an approach that we need to arrive at with the schools. It is the only sustainable approach. Our school costs are fundamentally and predominantly people costs. And the age of a gold-plated pension, the age of free healthcare for all, has gone. We have made, in all honesty, steps in this direction. People do contribute to their health plans, but their contributions are still small when compared to the private sector, and their family benefits are very generous when compared to the private sector. And that is just not long-term sustainable. Which brings me to the second topic for this evening's show, school funding and the MBR. Now, we all know that the supermajority Democrats ran on a program of providing $1.3 million to the schools. They said they would do so irrespective of what financial impact it would have on the town. they did so irrespective of what the audit said, because they said the audit would be fine. People like me who said that the audit had question marks associated with it were just troublemakers. Well, we all know that the audit wasn't fine. And it came back with all manner of nasties. But still, the Board of Selectmen said we will pay $1.3 million. We just don't know how. We need our attorney to tell us how to pay the $1.3 million. And so Attorney Nelligan was consulted. And Attorney Nelligan came back with a written opinion. Here it is. Written opinion, Attorney Nelligan, dated November 14, last week. The written opinion of Attorney Nelligan says you may pay these costs. It is legal for you to do so. In fact, it goes one step further. It says, the fact that the supermajority Democrats, 5 out of 7 of the Board of Selectmen, agreed to pay these amounts back in November of 2011 has effectively obligated the town to do so in defiance of its budget and in defiance of its charter. The 5 Democratic selectmen essentially made the $1.3 million a debt of this community, irrespective of what the audit said, irrespective of question costs, irrespective of our charter, irrespective of the budget. Let me quote. The Board of Selectmen has decided the DOE, that's the Department of Education, the DOE orders regarding the MBR are valid and legal claims against the town. As such, the claims must be paid. Any provisions of the Charter that interfere with the prompt payment of such claim must be disregarded in favor of the superseding state law. Attorney Nelligan is saying not that the state's interpretation of the MBR was right. He is saying that the selectmen, the 5 Democratic selectmen, by agreeing back in November that the state's interpretation was right, put you and we on the hook for paying it. None of which justifies, by the way, not raising a supplemental tax. Once again, as we said last week, no one ran on the basis of defunding the town. They ran on the basis of additionally funding the schools. If the selectmen have made this a debt of the town, they should pay it by raising a supplemental tax, not by raiding the fund balance. So last night there was a Board of Selectmen meeting. Did they discuss Attorney Nelligan's opinion? No, they did not. In fact, not every member of the Board of Selectmen has Attorney Nelligan's opinion. It was distributed only to certain members of the Board of Selectmen, and I will let you guess which members might not have received it. Just as I will let you judge whether it is appropriate and reasonable that certain members of the Board of Selectmen should be excluded from so important a discussion. So they did not discuss this opinion, nor did they discuss paying $1.3 million to the Board of Education. Why is that? Well, once again, there are 2 elephants in the room. There's $636,000 of question costs, and there's the absence of an audit for 10/11. The simple fact of the matter is, however all-powerful state law may be, the selectmen find it difficult to pay $1.3 million in the absence of knowing whether the town is bankrupt, with the absence of knowing whether we have $1.3 million. Unless they are willing to raise a tax, it is physically very difficult for them to make this payment, because they may not have the money. Which brings me to the third major topic, disclosure, Board of Education disclosure. Those of you who watch this show will know the last several episodes I have made clear a belief that the School Board Administration is moving in the right direction, and the Board of Education, perhaps more slowly, also. I have made clear that I felt that there was a commitment to more disclosure, better disclosure, fuller disclosure, more timely disclosure. I also made it clear that the budget would be the true test of this. I regret to say the first several weeks of the budget process have left this commitment to good disclosure, better disclosure, fuller disclosure, more accurate disclosure, more timely disclosure in tatters. We seem to be moving backwards. At our last Board of Education meeting, we reviewed certain budget materials, which we will review this evening, many of which I pointed out were either misleading or in certain respects inaccurate. After much discussion, in which most of my objections were overruled, Board Chair Susan Hofnagel finally said what everyone else believed. It doesn't matter that the information that this board and that this district puts out be accurate. as long as it serves our purposes and as long as we are confident that James Roberts will be out there to blow the whistle. Let me state that again. Board of Ed Chair Susan Hofnagel said, it doesn't matter whether what we say is true. It doesn't matter whether it's misleading. Because you will set the record straight, James Roberts. You're the snitch in the room who'll set the record straight. That's simply wrong. That's unacceptable. It does matter what story we tell. It has to be full, complete, and accurate. And whether or not I am the snitch who's going to set their record straight is immaterial. This takes us back to the mayor's comment several weeks ago, when she essentially said if she passed your house and saw a burglar running out, she would help them carry out the big screen TV. There is a culture of corruption in this town that we need to change. The school board sent out a mailer to most households in town last week entitled the 2012-13 Budget Preview. It's this document here. Most of you will have seen it. This document gives top-line direction as to budget issues. And I am in favor, frankly, of the school board putting information out. It probably cost $1,000, $1,500 to produce, but I'm in favor of spending that money to get information out there. If it's good information, if it's a credible budget, then people should know about it. If it's less satisfactory information, if it's a budget that people will not find credible, then they should know that that's what their Board of Education is thinking of. If it's accurate, all the better. If it's inaccurate, well, let that be the tangible proof that someone is trying to pull the wool over your eyes. By and large, this mailer is okay. It does purport to show the major initiatives, the major areas of increased spending, and the major areas where costs can be cut. There are inaccuracies. Special education is not and has never been 19% of the budget. Gilbert is not and has never been 33% of the budget. There is no special education equity grant that constitutes 25% of the budget. The special education equity grant constitutes precisely 0% of the 2011-12 budget, just as it has constituted 0% of every budget since 2008. There is no such thing as a special education equalization grant. It's a figment of someone's imagination. There is something that constitutes 25% of the budget. It's ECS. It is educational funding, but it has nothing at all to do with special education. One of the things that goes through both this document and the broader budget documents that we will review is an obsession with special education and a continued attempt to persuade you that that is what is behind every increase in our budget. It's not true. Other inaccuracies? A pie chart which shows how the 2011-12 monies are being spent fails to show the $735,000 that are being directed to the fund balance at the taxpayer's direction. Some facts are missed out completely. The fact that the superintendent's budget eviscerates the request of the Gilbert School. Likewise, the fact that the superintendent's budget will result in an increase to your mill rate of at least 80% of a mill. And then there are major topics which simply are left out completely. They just aren't discussed. School closing, consolidation of services, long-term trends in enrollment, long-term trends in cost. But I can overlook all of that, ladies and gentlemen, because I am in favor of more information being put out there to enable you to decide whether the information is good or bad, whether the intent of the board and the district is good or bad. Where I have a problem, ladies and gentlemen, is that this mailer directs everyone to the Winchester Schools website and to the budget materials that are therein posted. These are the materials that we went through at the Board of Education last week. The materials that I pointed out that were, in many respects and on many pages, either materially misleading or just downright wrong. We'll go through some of those issues here this evening. And let us start with the big one, the one that comes up each and every year. We hear it at the beginning of the year, we hear it at the end of the year. Special ed is a budget killer. It is unpredictable. It is going up by huge amounts. There is nothing we can do about it. And it's for the children. It's for the most fragile children in our community. We cannot shortchange special ed. That's what we hear. This document and the budget document on the website lists as the top driver of budget increases special ed, increasing special ed costs, particularly outplacement costs. Let's look at the numbers. These numbers are all drawn from the ED 001, the filing that the district makes with the state, certified by the superintendent. In 2008-09, total special education costs, $5.8 million. 2009-10, $5.3 million. 2010-11, $4.8 million. It's a 20% decline in 2 years. 20% decline in special education costs. If there's anything that special education is driving, it should be a decline in the budget. Current budget, $4.8 million. And as best as I can tell, next year's budget, $4.9 million. Again, special education is not driving a mill's worth of increases in our budget. So what about outplacements? 2008-09, $2.4 million. 2009-10, $2.3 million. 2010-11, $2.3 million. Flat. Again, not driving the budget. What else do we have? Page 1 of the disclosure document calls this budget a 2.5% budget. You ask Joe Smith, the average voter in Winsted, what he thinks of by a 2.5% budget, he's going to say, that's the amount my taxes go up. Wrong. Taxes go up by 3.3% in this budget. Page 4, list of the major initiatives. Excludes the alternative high school. This is a strange beast, ladies and gentlemen. As we've discussed, we're not closing a building. Indeed, we're going to use the top floor of the Pearson School, the elementary school, the 5th, 6th grade school, to house troubled teenagers. That is according to this budget. We close our alternative school. We show no signs of wanting to work with Region 7, who's looking at setting up a regional alternative school. We want to build our own in Pearson next to the 5th, 6th graders. The early retirement plan. It's the biggest single cost-saving plan. This is on page 8. It's a good plan, ladies and gentlemen, and we hope it succeeds. It should, however, be noted that it is the plan that's entirely out of the board's control. If the teachers agree to it, we will achieve $168,000 worth of savings. Only one teacher has thus far agreed, to the best of my knowledge. If the other 7 say no, a major plank in this budget goes out of the window. And then, once again, page 19, out-of-district tuition. 2011-12, budget of $8.7 million. 2012-13, budget of $9.5 million. Sounds like an increase. The snag is the 2011-12 budget item for out-of-district tuition isn't $8.7 million. It's $9.8 million. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We need to close the school if we want more money. We need to start being honest with our disclosure if we want more money. If we refuse to close a school, if we are not honest in our disclosure, we will not get more money. It is an offense to Joe Smith, average taxpayer and average voter in this town, to ask for more money without closing a school, without consolidating services. We must be honest with you as to what drives the budget. It's existing staff's increases in payments, and the desire to add new staff. We must be honest about that. We must prioritize where we want to spend our money. We are not currently being honest. We are using the same tired old catchphrases that we have used year in and year out. It's special ed, it's Gilbert, it's special ed. It is neither of those two things. It is existing staff and the desire to add new staff. Please come to the Budget Forum, Thursday, February 23rd, Gilbert School, 7 p.m. Let your views be known. Understand what is being offered in your name, suggested in your name, and tell us whether you are satisfied by that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.